Hey guys, this is Professor Handman, and I'll be describing the intertidal zone today. So the intertidal zone is basically made up of 3 different zones, and these zones are called the sublittoral, supralittoral, and littoral. The littoral zone is actually where the tides change. The supralittoral is only there when there is a very high tide, and the water rarely goes up that high. And the sublittoral is the completely underwater area. Anyway, there were many tests that we conducted in this area, and the tests include seining, which was using a large net and then involving a group of students running through a river and collecting all the animals that were scared. And sieving, where we just took a clump of mud and we put it onto a giant sieve, and when we got all the mud out, we would find all the organisms that were in there. Really, all we found were worms. Anyway, we found out that the tides were semi-diurnal because of the moon. And semi-diurnal basically means 2 tides. And there were 2 tides because of the high spring, high mean, low mean, and low spring tides. The highs are upper supralittoral and the lows were sublittoral. So, in the supralittoral zone, there were not many animals because there is rarely any water, so organisms don't really live there. However, there are lots of plant life. The plants mainly include tall grasses, and although it looks like there may be a lot of grasses there are actually very little. If you imagine it like a bald man with a comb over, the matted grass would be blown over by the wind because it was high up, and this would cause it to fold over, making it look like there were a lot of grass. The first time our students went there, well, we thought it was about almost 100% grass, but after we went to the roots, it was mostly like 15%, which is kind of crazy. Hey again, it got kind of cold in my house, so I had to pull up my sleeve. Anyway, in the littoral zone, this is where the tides change most dynamically, and many organisms had to develop traits or actions to accommodate for this. So, for example, a mussel has the ability to retain water and lives in the littoral zone. The littoral zone switches tides, so when the mussel is submerged, it will open its shell and have water flow freely throughout it. When the tide recedes, it will close its shell and then it will be able to retain water. Also, ghost crabs have taken advantage of this by going down during low tide into the littoral zone, where some animals may still be there, and this is how they hunt for food. Finally, we have the sublittoral zone, and this is the area that is almost 100% all the time submerged in water. So, in the sublittoral zone, this is where we did most of our sieving, and as you recall, this is where we took mud and put it through a sieve, and we found the organisms that were in there. Most of these organisms were worms, but there were many different kinds. For example, there was one that was in a large clump with a bunch of other worms, and it looked kind of like a wiggly brain. Ew.